These are questions 18 and 19 from the Unit 3 test review. For each function, find the axis of symmetry and the vertex. We don't have a graph this time, so we're going to have to use the formulas for axis of symmetry, and we're going to have to use the equation that we're given to find the y for our vertex. So the first thing we want to do is we want to identify our A, our B, and our C so that we can calculate our axis of symmetry. So our A is a 3, our B is negative 12, and our C is positive 1. And we're going to take these numbers and we're going to plug them into the formula for axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry says x equals negative 1 times b. So I'm going to take that b out and I'm going to replace it with a negative 12. And on the bottom it says 2 times a. So I'm going to take the a out and I'm going to replace it with a 3. Negative 1 times negative 12 makes a positive 12. And 2 times 3 equals 6. Last step would be to simplify this. 12 divided by 6 equals 2. So my axis of symmetry is a positive 2. To find my vertex, I'm going to take this where it says x equals 2 and I'm going to plug it into the original problem that I was given to find my y. So I'm going to say y equals 3 and I'm going to take that x out and I'm going to put some parentheses there and I'm going to put the 2 inside the parentheses. Make sure that you square that first set of parentheses. And then I'm going to say minus 12, and I'm going to do parentheses, and I'm going to put that 2 inside the parentheses again, plus 1. And then use your calculator. There's no reason not to use your calculator. Write the problem down so that you can see where all of the numbers go. And then use your calculator to put that in. 3 times 2 squared minus 12 times 2 plus 1. And we'll find that our y is negative 11. Well, now we have an x equals 2. We have a y equals negative 11. So we have everything we need for a vertex. Our vertex is positive 2, negative 11. Question 19 is set up the same way. You need to identify your A, your B, and your C, and then plug them in to the correct places in the axis of symmetry formula. So A is positive 1, B is positive 6, and C is also positive 1. X equals negative 1 times B, so I'm going to take the B out and replace it with a 6. And on the bottom it says 2 times A, I'm going to take the A out and replace it with a 1. Negative 1 times 6 is negative 6, and 2 times 1 is 2. And negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. So our X is negative 3. And we're going to take this negative 3 and we're going to substitute it back in to the original equation that we were given, the original function. So we're going to say y equals, and we're going to take the x out and we're going to put parentheses there and we're going to put that negative 3 inside the parentheses. It's really important that you put that negative 3 inside a set of parentheses because you want to know what negative 3 squared is. You want to know what negative 3 times negative 3 is. If you don't put the parentheses, the calculator will calculate it as the opposite of 3 squared, and it'll just say 3 times 3 instead of negative 3 times negative 3. And then we're going to say plus 6. We're going to take the x out, replace it with a negative 3, and then plus 1 at the end. So here's why it's really important that you put those parentheses in. I'm going to do it first the correct way, which is the way that I have it written on my paper. Parentheses negative 3 squared plus 6 times negative 3 plus 1. And I find that my y is negative 8. So my vertex in XY format is negative 3, negative 8. Negative 3, negative 8. If you don't put those parentheses in, if you say negative 3 squared plus 6 times negative 3 plus 1, this right here is where the calculator is going to mess this up. It's going to say the opposite of 3 squared. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, and the calculator is going to say the opposite of that is negative 9, and you're going to get a really big number, in this case negative 26, which was not the correct answer. The correct answer was the first one, where we had all of the parentheses around the negative 3. Be very careful when you're plugging things into your calculator and dealing with negatives and squaring them.